I remember when my house got reassessed and we had an escrow shortage, and it's like, oh, what? Like, not only is my taxes going up, but now I have an escrow shortage. It catches you off guard when all of a sudden your mortgage payment shoots up by $200 a month.
Welcome to the Real Pulse of Real Estate, where we discuss the true ins and outs of the housing market. We are back with Real Pulse of Real Estate with David Behymer of Guaranteed Rate. Hello, sir. How are you?
Doing well.
Perfect. So this episode, I want to go ahead and talk to you about something that I feel like is very much in the news, is very much like more of a buzzword right now. Interest rates.
Yes.
Right. We've been seeing and we've been talking. I mean, January was it was like, oh, wow, it's 3% all of a sudden. Because 2020 and 2021 really spoiled us.
Oh, absolutely.
However, the Treasury just said LOL JK to a lot of the things they were discussing. And interest rates are shooting up a lot quicker than what was originally projected. So when it comes to that, how does that affect the buyer's buying power and what all goes into that?
One thing I will say as well is that, the first thing you hear about in the news is the Fed's rates are rising and things like that. One thing that is kind of nice about the mortgage world and how interest rates work is that when that's announced and they say, oh, we're raising them another quarter point next month or something.
Yeah.
The mortgage rates have already baked that in. So
Okay.
like a lot of people hear that, and when they're getting quoted today and their LO is saying, oh yeah, I can get you 5.5%. And then they read in the news that, oh, they're raising them another 0.5%.
Mhm.
That doesn't necessarily mean that next month you're going to be at 6%. I mean, it could the way the market's going, but
Yes.
it's not a guaranteed, because once that's announced, it's already baked into our pricing. So I always like to let people know that as well, just because of everybody just hears that and then they call me and they're like, well, I just heard the Fed said they're going to raise it another quarter point. Does that mean you're quoting me this and it's going to be a quarter point next week? No, it doesn't mean that.
Yeah.
So I just did some quick math on like a $200,000 purchase price.
Dangerous for some Campbell County boys to be doing math.
Right, exactly. I did go to public school. So if somebody's in the comments calling me a moron, I'm going to defer to the fact that I went to public school in Northern Kentucky.
That is fair.
So at a $200,000 purchase price, 5% down, which is $10,000, at a 3% interest rate, your principal and interest payment is $801.05.
Okay, so can we clarify for those who might not know, principal and interest is just loan.
Yes.
So there's a whole other thing escrow-wise that we can talk about in potentially a later episode, or anything that includes your taxes and insurance.
Right.
So what you're talking is just house-wise, not including taxes and insurance.
Yes. One of the main reasons of why I didn't include taxes and insurance in this calculation is because insurance is going to be all over the map. Your payment could be $60 a month, it could be $100 a month. Taxes, they could be $350 a month, or it could be $100 a month, depending on the area.
It
So
depends on Campbell County, Grant County, wherever we're looking, it's
Exactly.
going to be skewed.
And-
So yeah.
and then Hamilton counties,
Yep.
they're usually really fun to deal with. So
Yep.
yeah, so I will say that, I just wanted to focus on principal and interest
Perfect.
because the taxes are going to be based on the property. Your homeowner's insurance is going to be based on, whatever property you land on.
Yeah.
So that's $801.05. But that same house, same 5% down, so $10,000, so same loan amount of $190 at a 5.75 interest rate, which is, a pretty standard rate now. You could get a little lower, could get a little higher than that right now, but that same house is now $1,108.79.
Got you.
So to put that into perspective as what that does to your buying power is to try and get closer back to that 800 mark of a purchase price with a 5.75 interest rate with the same down payment and everything. You're looking now at buying a roughly $145,000 house.
Wow. Okay. So interest rate wise, to get the same monthly payment from a $200,000 house at 3% going to a 5.75 to have the same just principal and interest payment is now $145,000. So, I mean, we're looking at $55,000 difference.
Yes.
That's not even doubled technically, right? That's going from 3% to 5.75.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost a double, I'd say. I mean,
Okay.
5.75, so it's 2.75 of a gain. So with the way these interest rates have gone, I mean, there's people who, we pre-approved back in December and we were quoting them, 2.75, 3.25. And they're now coming back to us that, oh, I found this great house that I loved. And they're seeing that their buying power has either dwindled or the same
Mhm.
house that they want is almost $300-400 more a month. And they're like, well, how did that happen? And it's all in the rates. So
Truly, it's really important to have a loan officer like yourself who, one, understands the market, right? Understands what the interest rates are doing and how that affects buying power. Because correct me if I'm wrong, what was it, March or April? There were some midday rate changes,
oh yeah,
which isn't normally the most common, especially for the last 2 years of a market we've been in.
right.
And with midday rate changes, I was having clients that were pre-approved, were scheduled to go see a home at 6 p.m. that night, and I scheduled to see it in the morning. And with a midday rate change, because of their area of it was kind of tight already,
Right.
they're out now, and
Yeah.
we can't see that house anymore.
Yeah, and that's one thing I will say about that as well is that it really pays to have an LO that is constantly, for one, in tune with the market, for two, reviewing files. I
Mhm.
every time typically, usually right around, I'd say Wednesdays and Thursdays for whatever reason seems to be kind of like the calmer days of
Yeah.
the week for us, and that's usually when I like to sit down and I try to go through all of my pre-approvals. If I know their debt to incomes, around in the high mid 30s, and I last had their rate at 5.25, and I know now it's probably around 5.5 for them or
Yeah.
something like that. I may not touch their file just because it's like, okay, that's not going to make that big of a difference. But if I have someone who's right at a 49 back end debt to income ratio, and that 0.25% jump could be the make or break, that's when I'm like reviewing it and then trying to reach back out to the client to explain to them, hey, this is what's going on in the market.
Yeah.
We're now not in the 180, 190 price range. Now
Mhm.
we probably need to cut it back to 160, 170.
Yeah.
Things like that are the conversations. They're always not the funnest conversation. And, you always have the people who are like, oh, well, I'll just go to the next guy and he'll tell me something different. And yeah, there may be an LO who says, oh, I can do X, Y, Z. And, there's the people that like to do the bait and switch just to get you in the
Mhm.
door. And then there are people who can possibly beat me. And, I never take offense to it because at the end of the day, I always trust that people are going to do what's right for them and their family.
Yeah.
So if you can get a better deal and you're going to have just as good a service and things like that, like I get it, but you have to have somebody who is constantly looking at your file, especially when those numbers get a little tighter, to make sure, for one, you're comfortable with the payment. For one,
Mhm.
you can still get approved for that payment. And, the numbers still make sense for you.
I think that's one big thing because I mean, like historically, I mean, I've looked at the deals that we've done in the past. You've saved some people because you're paying attention and have a pulse on the market,
Yeah.
right? And one client that we've had, you locked him in and you convinced him that he needs to lock in now because rates are going up. And we saved him a whole 0.5%, was it? Of just about from one day to the next.
Oh yeah, I think it was like 0.375. So basically 3/8
Mhm.
of a jump,
Yeah.
literally just from, it was 4 o'clock on a Tuesday
Mhm.
until 9 a.m. on Wednesday.
Yeah.
It was like less than a 24-hour jump. He had all over a 0.25%
Yeah.
jump.
I think by the time we finished closing, it was a full point difference.
Oh yeah.
Like I like to say, there's great real estate agents out there.
Yeah.
I just love that the public uses those people, just like great loan officers. There's plenty of business for all of us.
Right.
And as long as people are being educated and going with the right thing, it's just definitely important to have a pulse and understanding because I don't think a lot of people understand it just went up a 0.25 point. How does that affect me to knocking me out of not even being able to afford this house anymore?
Oh
And
yeah.
it's a much different market. And I mean, it's not the stock market. It's not NASDAQ, right?
Right.
It's a whole other beast on its own.
I've had clients when I tried to explain to them the whole, rates are moving up, this and that, and I've had them tell me, well, no, the rates actually shouldn't be moving up because I just saw the Nasdaq's, the S&P 500 just closed,
Mhm.
5% up, and it's like, yeah, that doesn't.
Yeah.
How we kind of base everything off of is going to be off of the mortgage-backed security market. So
Okay.
that's where our, when we say the sky is falling because rates are going up and people see that the stock market's going through the roof and it's doing amazing, it's all based on the mortgage backed security. So that's where that whole thing comes from. I actually just wanted to do a little extra math here just because we're sitting here doing the differences of just that 0.25%. I did just an extra little math of 3% interest rate versus 3.25. That added about $25 a month. So I mean, if you think about it, on a $200,000 house with 5% down, every 0.25% is an extra $25 a month. I mean, that's getting lunch out one day. If it jumps up a whole percent, that's $100 a month. That's a nice dinner that you're getting every night.
Yeah.
It's just, you really just have to keep in tune with stuff. And that's the other thing too. I always try to educate my clients, especially in this rising rate market. The biggest thing I try to educate them on is, once the debt to income start getting a little too tight, I could say, yes, I can approve you at 200 to 250, or let's just say 250. But, your debt to income is very tight. So realistically, you need to be shopping in the 225, maybe 230 range because, I'm estimating X for taxes. But if they end up being higher than what I'm estimating, and I try to estimate high just to play it safe, but that could be the difference on you getting the house or not. And that's the other thing why I always say, like, hey, I always tell people, if you're looking at a house, let me know. So I'll look up the actual taxes for it. So I can put them in and make sure that, you can get as close to what your max pre-approval is, especially if you have to do a competitive offer where people are doing, 15, 20K over asking. And ideally our team wants to get our clients so educated and so well prepared with such a good, solid offer that, if there's 10 offers on the same house, we want to eliminate 80 to 90% of them. Like, we want to be either number one or number two that are going head to head for this home.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons I appreciate working with such a great loan officer like yourself and others, is helping buyers not just understand, here's what you're pre-approved to, but here's where your monthly payments break down with that pre-approval, right? Yes. Because one big thing that I always talk to my clients about that's really important to me and to educate my clients on is understanding you can be pre-approved to $500,000, and that is great.
Yeah.
If the payment does not make sense for your budget and what you feel comfortable with monthly, and we're looking at $300,000 houses, that's okay. Yeah. The important thing at the end of the day is that you are not house poor. Yes. Although buying a home is great, it's not there just to say, I did it, right?
Absolutely.
It's not really necessarily a requirement.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, buying it is fantastic. I don't want it to be to the point where you can no longer afford to go out on a vacation or go grab a drink with friends because I can't make my payment if I spend that $50 at the bar. Absolutely. You know what I mean? So it definitely is one of those things I appreciate about yourself, that break down the monthly payments and you do assess the taxes. Every single time I send you the address, it's making sure we understand this is what taxes will do.
And that's the biggest thing as well, that you can always kind of take it an extra step, kind of mentally preparing the client of saying, hey, yes, you're buying this $250,000 house. Well, the taxes a month, let's just say, just for the sake of numbers, the taxes are $200 a month in taxes, but it's last assessed at $125.
Yeah.
So if I take those numbers, well, now your taxes, whenever your property gets reassessed, is probably going to be closer to about $400 a month because,
because you've just doubled sales price.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and at the end of the day, cities and counties are going to do whatever they want. I just like to try to give them a little bit of an idea, because I remember when my house got reassessed and we had an escrow shortage, and it's like, oh, what? Not only is my taxes going up by $50, $60, $70 a month, but now I have an escrow shortage where now I'm having to pay the difference of what's missing out of my escrow account for these taxes.
Yeah.
And it catches you off guard when all of a sudden your mortgage payment shoots up by $200 a month, because obviously your principal and interest can't ever change, but that's really the only thing that can change is going to be your taxes. Or if you ever, get a different insurance because, you want something cheaper, you want something more expensive because better coverage, whatever that. But as far as your principal and interest, that's the only thing that really can't change unless you refinance. But
yeah, or have a ARM, and we can get into that.
Yes, that'll be a whole another episode.
Yeah. No, and I agree. And I think especially when it comes to first-time home buyers and everything, like you said, a $200 difference in a monthly payment is make or break at times. Yeah. Well, I just bought this new car, so now I have a car payment, and I didn't expect my house to go up by $200 because of the reassessment.
Yes.
So that is very smart, just reassessing and understanding. You are very proactive of worst case possibility. Yes. I want you to be educated.
Yes, because I would rather estimate $300 a month for taxes and $100 a month for insurance, and you get a quote for $60, $70 a month for insurance, and your taxes come back at $150 a month. Mm-hmm. Because then it's like, okay, you already walked into this knowing, oh, this could be my payment. Now it's way lower. So that's just how I like to kind of always wrap it up and make sure that people are in the know.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, that's the most important thing, having the clients in the know. No blindside, because when you set the standards and you set the tempo, it's really hard to get upset. Absolutely. At the end of the day. So David, thank you so much for being on again. If people are looking to reach out to you, how can they do that?
Yeah. So as always, I'm always on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook as just @Loan Officer Dave. And outside of that, you can always get me on the website. It has all my contact information at www.rate.com/David Behymer, Behymer.
Awesome. Thank you so much, sir,
Yeah,
for
thanks
being
for having
on
me.
Real Pulse of Real Estate.
Absolutely. I love
And
it. I love the title.
We'll see how it goes.
Hey, we'll
So thank you so much again, and
thank
looking
you.
forward to another episode with you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Real Pulse of Real Estate. If you're looking for more content, follow me on Instagram or TikTok at I'm Cron Burgundy or Facebook at Adam Cron Realtor. Can't wait for you to join us next week.